Hi, I'm Kelly Rausch, Classic Theater of San Antonio's Executive and Artistic Director, and I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining us this evening for the second part of our community conversation, Amplifying Black Female Voices. This evening, we will be having a conversation that is facilitated by Cynthia Freeman Gibbs with 4 female panelists. Our event will run from 7 to 8:30. And this is a safe place. So all trolls and their comments will be blocked, removed, or hidden. Now it is my pleasure to introduce you to Cynthia Freeman Gibbs, in case you weren't with us last month. Cynthia Freeman Gibbs, who also writes as C.F. Gibbs, is the author of Reasonable Insanity, a Dr. Olivia C. Maxwell novel, and contributing co-author in United Black Writers Association, Writing is Essential. She anticipates the release of 2 additional books in 2020, which includes the sequel to her debut book and a modern-day twist of Jack and the Beanstalk. Cynthia is a native of Lansing, Michigan, and MBA graduate of Florida A&M University, who is enjoying life in San Antonio with her husband. She volunteers her time in service at her church with Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc., and several organizations. It is my pleasure to welcome Cynthia Gibbs.
Thank you, Kelly. Hello, everyone. And thank you for, first of all, allowing me to be the moderator for this evening. And also, I want to thank the Classic Theater for opening their doors again for this community conversation. You are going to have an opportunity to hear from a diverse panel of Black women who are going to talk about what they are going to do in order to make a change in their community as we look at equity and justice and inclusion. And I want all of you to also examine what you can do, no matter how small, in order to make a change in your community. So we're going to get right into this, and I'll introduce our panel to you at this time. First of all, we have Linda Nance. Hello, Linda.
Hi. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you. Linda was born, raised, and educated in Texas. She earned a bachelor's degree in biology and French, and a master's degree in higher education, and a master's degree in education administration. She's been married for almost 50 years to Herbert, and they have 2 children and 1 grandchild. Over the years, she has held many leadership positions in her church and in community service organizations. She has served over 30 years in public education and has been recognized for many different achievements throughout her career. In 2014, Linda retired as a principal. And in retirement, she continues to mentor school leaders by providing her expertise and knowledge. Welcome to the conversation, Linda.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Next, we have Deborah Omawali Jarman. Hi, Deborah.
Hi there.
Glad to have you here. Deborah is a Classic Theater board member and retired civil servant who relocated to San Antonio to be a close-by grandmother for 5 of her 9 grandchildren. Known as a community advocate and a lover of history, she is thrilled to be living out her personal mission statement of leaving a legacy of love and service to family and the community through her current position as the executive director of the San Antonio African American Community Archive and Museum. Welcome to the panel, Deborah.
Thank you.
All right, our next panelist is Danielle King. Hello, Danielle.
Hello, everybody.
Danielle is the co-founder of the Renaissance Guild, San Antonio's premier Black theater company, and she is honored to be included in this conversation. She has 25 plus years as a professional actor and singer, and her recent works includes Divas of Eastwood, The Return, Newsies, Vanya and Sonia and Masha and Spike, and Smokey Joe's Cafe. Her favorite performances are Ragtime, African Folktales, Hairspray, Blues for an Alabama Sky, Steel Magnolias, and Ethics Follies. She has won numerous Alamo Theater Arts Council Performance Awards and really enjoys teaching theater to all ages. Danielle, welcome to the panel.
Thank you.
And now I would like to introduce our newest panelist, Melissa Sledge. Hi, Melissa.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. Melissa is an Austin-based actor and fitness professional that is known for her 50-pound weight loss success that was featured in Shape magazine. When she's not promoting healthy living principles, she is a student of the Carol Hickey Acting Studio Conservatory program. Melissa is originally from Kansas and attended Arizona State University, where she earned her bachelor's degree in business and interpersonal communication. Melissa is a member of the Junior League of Austin, in addition to serving on the board of Wheatsville Co-op. To learn more or work with Melissa, please visit her website at melissasledge.com. So welcome to the conversation, Melissa. Okay, so now you've been introduced to our panelists, and at the end of the conversation, you're going to have an opportunity to answer a variety of poll questions. So those poll questions will be put onto your screen. So please make sure that you go through and answer those questions, and then we will share the results after that. So let's get right into these questions. We want to be on the right side of history when it comes to being one nation under God. We have seen tactics of degrading and dehumanizing others, which results in the lack of human decency and kindness. So what choices have you had to make in order to make things better for the next generation? And I really would like to hear from all four of you on this particular question. So let's start with Linda, followed by Deborah, Danielle, and then Melissa. So Linda, take it away.
Okay, thank you. I would say that the choices that I made started, they aren't recent. They started years ago when I decided that I wanted to be an educator, because growing up, I had some really good role models as teachers, and they made a difference in my life. And I thought that becoming an educator, I could do the same thing as a teacher. They gave us opportunities that our parents would want to give us, but they were just unable to do that. So I thought that was something that I really wanted to do. So I decided that I wanted to become a teacher and be able to do some of the same things or more that my teachers did. And I grew up during segregation days, so I went to an all-Black school from elementary through high school. So there were limits in the things that we could do. But our teachers, our principals made sure whatever was there, that it was, whatever was available, that we were a part of it, no matter what it was, if we could do it, if we were allowed to do it. So when I became a principal, a teacher first, I tried to do some of the very same things with my kiddos. One of the things that I was able to do, I was a part of a program called Multilingual, where the kids in middle school had an opportunity to take one of 5 languages: French, Spanish, German, Latin, or Japanese. And I taught French. These kids took it for 2 hours a day. And then they were able to show off their language skills by competing with kiddos in high school, and they did really, really well. And they went to a college campus. So some of these kiddos, it was the first time they've ever been on a college campus. So that gave them opportunity to see what else was out there besides living on the east side, the west side. And then when I became a principal, I tried to provide opportunities for kiddos as well. I did mock elections. I had career days where I had, for a whole week, I did careers. I had people of different walks of life come in, and I had things for the kids. We had a career like open house also too. So my choices were started early on. I just wanted to be an educator and try to make it better for the kids, including my own and now my grandson.
Awesome. Thank you. Deborah. I think you're still on mute, Deborah.
Yes.
There we go. Thank you. All right. Not to say how old I am, but my choices started early as well. I had the privilege of having a wonderful career in aviation, and I looked around and I didn't see people that looked like me. So my employee association, the National Black Coalition of Federal Aviation Employees, I got very much involved in working with them and recruiting African Americans to be in the aviation field and letting them know that there are things out there that are bigger than just around the corner. You can actually be involved in aviation and see the world from a number of different perspectives. It's not just the pilot that works on, that's associated with airplanes. And then fast forwarding to children, I proudly have 9 grandchildren. And one of the things that I really try to do is make sure that they understand history from the standpoint that their ancestors were kings and queens, and they need to act like kings and queens and really understand their history. Our history didn't start when we were enslaved. Our history is much richer than that. So that's what I'm trying to do, and really get them to understand that they have a purpose. They're here for a purpose. They're a gift to the world. So that's what I'm doing.
Thank you. Danielle.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but we can't see you. There you are.
Now can you see me? Okay, sorry for the technical difficulties. So what I try to do in my line of work, I usually work generally with children in after school programs, a lot of after school programs. And so I get to mingle and be involved with a lot of different cultures of kids when I work. And so what I try to do is to make sure that the kids can use me as a good example and a good role model for people who look like us, and explain things if they don't understand how they impact not just them, but how it can impact other people as well. And I try to be mindful that kids are, let me go back a half step. Racial injustice, racial inequality, or just being a trained racist, that is a trained behavior. Kids are taught that kind of knowledge at a very young age. So what I also try to do is make sure no matter what kind of training they're getting at home, and I don't ask, but sometimes you can see it. I try to make sure that they see that this is a good example of who a good person is, no matter what color I am. And that if there's ever a problem, I try to step in and I try to make sure we even things out, and I try to correct any racial statements or racial beliefs that I think that I see. I try to address it in a calm and easygoing fashion to make sure we all understand, hey, we're all human and we're all the same people. No matter what our skin color is, nobody is better than anybody else. So I try to use good training examples and good leadership examples when I'm working with my kids to make sure I just represent what a good human being really is.
Thank you. And Melissa.
One thing that I've strived to do professionally is to always be involved in the DE&I conversations, regardless of my role within the company, and being comfortable and setting an example with having conversations with leadership and other members of organizations that are really going to facilitate change throughout that organization. So I'm not afraid to jump in and be the one person to share the knowledge, but also be the voice for a group. So just professionally going out there and facilitating these conversations.
Very good. Thank you all for those responses. Um, Going on to the next question. When you think about someone like Oprah Winfrey, she has a lot of money. And she was able to go to Louisville, Kentucky, and buy 26 billboards in order to fight for justice for Breonna Taylor. And while we would all love to have Oprah Winfrey's money, we don't. Well, I don't know about you all, but I know I don't. But in thinking about that, though, we all have a responsibility to do something, no matter how small. And so my question is, what simple actions can people take in order to make a difference in our communities and our country? So let's start back with Melissa first. And then instead of me jumping back in between each of you, as soon as Melissa finishes, let's hear from Linda and then Danielle.
The best and simplest thing that I can recommend is know what's happening in your community. Who are your city leaders? Who are your city officials? Are you involved with city council? When does city council meet? But also participate in local voting and national voting. So take advantage of the local resources that you have, whether it's your city websites, and learn who those critical people are so that you can understand their platform, their position, and also when it comes time for re-election, can make some changes that are better aligned for your community.
Linda, we can't hear you. You can unmute.
I would agree with Melissa. I think that there are, all those things she said are definitely very, very important, you know, being involved locally and doing what you can do locally. I think that sometimes we think that we have to do something really big, like with Oprah or like Tyler Perry, you know, that they do these amazing things, but we as regular people, there are things that we can do too. One very important thing that we can do that everyone needs to do if you haven't done is take the census. That's very, very important. If you haven't done that, I think the deadline for the census is the end of September, September 30th. That's very, very important because that's money that if you don't do that, that's money that won't come to us. So take the census. It's not too late to do that. And of course, the other thing that we're going to talk about a little later on, as she said, is voting. It's very, very important. We'll go into some more details as to why that's important, but you have to register to vote and then vote. But you can also do things you can become a foster parent, you can become a volunteer, you can make donations to the Goodwill, the food bank. There are opportunities out there that you can avail yourself of. You know, you can, churches sometimes often have opportunities. You have to be a member to volunteer, but there's always a way to do something. Just don't think because, you know, this is a small thing and I can't give millions of thousands of dollars. Everybody is still very, very important. I want to remind you of a Bible verse that stuck with me for many, many years. It used to be because the Black schools didn't separate church and state. I remember having to learn Bible verses in school, in elementary school. We had to learn Bible verses. I mean, there was no doubt about it. So we had to pick one that started with the first initial of your name that talked a bit about what you tried to do. So this is what I want to share with you. So remember this. I think this will be impactful for you. It's Matthew 5:16. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So no matter what you do, no matter how small it is, you may not think it's a big deal, but somebody does.
Wow, that was super fantastic. She almost took all of mine. So I'll just say ditto, ditto, ditto to what she said. And they're absolutely right. You don't have to be Oprah Winfrey. You don't have to be Tyler Perry. You don't even have to know a lot about the history and a lot about the background, because there's a lot of stuff we don't know either, but you can ask. If you don't know what to do, ask somebody, ask an organization, how can I help? How can I volunteer? What do you need to have done? So that you can find some place to help out. You can find some place where you can feel comfortable helping to spread the word and helping to get the word out, or helping in any type of way. There's nothing too small. There's no task too small. And there's no mountain too big. But if you just volunteer, and if you just say, how can I help? If you don't know what to do, people will find something for you to do. They will find something for you to lend your support to, so that things can grow and get better.
Very good. All of these are great suggestions. And I'll add one on, to make phone calls to your senators and your Congress people, and also to write letters. And there's actually an app that I use called the 5 Calls app, where it tells you what are the current issues, and it even gives you a script that you can use. So you just look that over, and then you make those phone calls, fill up their voicemail boxes, and I know they get tired of me, but it demands a response. So something that's small. You don't have to always be out, it might not be that you're the one that's going to be out in the street protesting. That might not be for you, but there is something that you can do. Okay. So the next question, we know that Senator Kamala Harris made history when presidential candidate Joe Biden selected her to be his VP running mate. Having a seat at the table when you might be the only one who looks like you at the table is something that all of us on this panel can relate to. So, Deborah, what does her inclusion on the Democratic national ticket mean for us when it comes to your voice?
Wow. So, that's actually a two-sided coin. It's, oh, happy day. First of all, just to see a beautiful, smart, articulate woman, just in 4 short years, right after the First Lady left office, to be knocking at the door of the White House is extremely powerful. And it comes at a time when our Black girls need to continue to see role models in every walk of life, not just, we're fine role models, but to see that go back to the White House allows our girls to know that anything is possible with hard work. So that's the heads. The tail part is, if they being the people that are not as excited as I am about Kamala's election, if they are questioning her birth, if they are questioning what she stands for, if they're questioning her education, if they're questioning the way she has done her job as Attorney General for the state of California and then as Senator for the state of California, then who am I to think that I won't be questioned? So it's a two-sided coin.
Wow, that's powerful. And I also would like to see what Danielle, what would you say this means for you?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. We can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on. I think it's super exciting that she has achieved the level that she has. I'm like, ooh, that is wonderful, and that is great. And we need to do everything we possibly can to support the efforts that have been made, or that she has made. I think that is wonderful. I think it gets us closer to the fact that, yes, we might even have a female president someday soon, before all of us leave this earth, preferably. And that is even more reason to celebrate the accomplishment that she's made, and the further steps that are available for women to become president of the United States. So I'm celebrating the victory, not just because she's an African American woman, but because she is a woman, period, point blank. And she has accomplished a milestone that no one else has.
Yes, a lot to celebrate for sure. Okay, so when it comes to voting, we have all heard about how our ancestors, how they fought. Some were beaten and some even died just to give us this right to vote. And seeing all that is going on around us in the effort to suppress our vote, such as sabotaging mail-in ballots and closing precincts in predominantly minority communities, it just shows just how powerful our vote is, and is even more of a reason to vote. They wouldn't work that hard to suppress it if it didn't mean anything. And so, Melissa, I want to come to you with this question first. What is your message to young people, or actually to anyone, who talks about holding their vote hostage instead of voting at all?
My message is it is unwise to complain about a problem and yet perpetuate it with inactivity. So there is so much happening that is flawed and that is wrong, and we can complain and commiserate, but our voice and our vote is the way that we move toward change. And it's a little at a time. Like, we would love these grand sweeping things, but it's a little at a time.
All right, and Deborah, I'd also like to get your thoughts on this question.
Okay, so now I'm going to sound like my grandfather. Well, what I would say to young people is, I'm going to take you out to the shed and beat you because you really don't understand how we got to this place. People died so we could vote. It's that simple. Today, all on social media, I saw a lot of energy around the 100th anniversary of the suffrage the suffrage movement, providing women the right to vote. Well, what is missing from that celebration is Black women didn't have the right to vote. So yeah, you better vote. And like Melissa said, not just for the president, as we saw with President Obama's reign, his term, that without having Congress that is supportive, it's very difficult to get things accomplished. So you can't just vote for the president and walk out of the booth. You have to be educated enough to know who you need to vote for the House of Representatives, for the Senate, and then for your Attorney General. That's huge, because that's going to help us resolve will help us start to resolve the prison pipeline and all of that. I mean, I could go on and on and on, all the way down to you're a city council person. You have to be educated and you have to vote. You just do. Our lives depend on it.
Amen to that. And I would even say, you know, for when people say, well, I don't vote and I'm not going to complain. Well, think about, are you ever going to complain about the streets in your community, the education system, your housing, your ability to get basic necessities, climate change? All of these things are things that, when people say, oh, I'm not going to vote, it really gets under my skin, because they're not considering everything that is being affected, down to the dog catcher keeping dogs off of your street. So definitely, I'll move on to the next question, but I get a little warm when I think about people not voting. Okay, so Black Lives Matter has brought to the forefront of minds that it is not enough to say, I'm not a racist. The goal should be to be an anti-racist and to take action today. So Melissa, how can prejudices be examined and what actions taken to be an anti-racist?
I'll first start by saying everyone has homework to do. Everyone should be working toward and striving toward anti-racist living, if you will. I will also say with Google and Amazon and the New York Times bestseller list and the Center for Anti-Racist Research, there are a ton of resources out there available to help you learn about yourself and learn about the deficiencies in your knowledge that need to be filled. So get comfortable with learning and embrace the fact that yes, you might have lived through X, Y, and Z, and you might be X years old, but there's still a lot of things that you don't know, and there's still opportunity and room to grow and to improve for yourself and for your family and for your children and for your community.
Very good. Oh, Danielle, looks like Danielle wants to say something.
There we go. Sorry. Yes, yes. And if I could also add on, like I was saying before, racism is a taught mindset. And normally it comes right off of you sitting on the knee of your mom, your dad, your grandma, your grandpa. It goes back that far. And even as we're children, we're taught, you believe what grandma says, you do what grandpa says, because that's the truth and that's the way things should be. And some of the things they said and taught us are right, but some of the things they said or taught us are wrong. Now, it's not your fault that you were raised that way. You have no control over that. But what you do have control and responsibility once you start to get old enough to discern right from wrong. If something they taught you way back then when you were sitting on their knee now doesn't seem quite right, you need to investigate that. That is your responsibility and your accountability to take control of that information, whether it still gets to play a part in your life or not. So no matter how you were raised, by whomever it was, if it's not right, it's your responsibility now to fix it. So take ownership of that. And you can still love grandma and grandpa, even though they taught you the wrong way. You can still do that, but you need to make sure you live your life rightly. That's all.
Wow, both of those answers are awesome. And it just really speaks to the importance of people wanting to learn. It is something that is not unobtainable. So keeping on this theme as it relates to racism, our country has become painfully aware of what Black Americans have known forever about how systemic racism affects everyone. So what I'm going to bring up first, though, is what is called white privilege. This may cause some discomfort among people who are not used to being defined by their race. And then with the word privilege, it sounds like a word suggesting that they have never struggled, which is not the suggestion being made. So white privilege is having greater access to power and resources than people of color in the same situation. So it is both unconsciously enjoyed and consciously perpetuated, causing it to continue. So it is the power of normal and simple everyday conveniences which white people aren't forced to think about. And it affects the way that we all move in the world. So the question that I'd like to ask around this is, how can someone deal with their discomfort of speaking up and being an active ally by using their white privilege to call out unjust behavior? And so let's get a perspective from, let's go with Deborah first, then Linda and Melissa. Just jump right in. And Deborah, oh, there you go.
All right. I just had to take a breath. So, one of the things that is helpful, I was telling my grandson today that if you know something is wrong, now granted, white privilege is sometimes you don't know it's wrong, but let's start from if you know something is wrong, call it out. Your voice matters. You cannot be silent. I don't even know how your conscience would allow you to be silent when you know that people are being mistreated, people of color. So use your voice and call it out. I will also go back to what Melissa said, is that you need to educate yourself and ask those questions. If people of color are immersed in our history, so if you only hear the fairy tale of the white knight, perhaps ask the question, well, wait a minute, what about the Native people that were there? What about the people that helped the economy by their servitude, whether they were paid or not? The chances of them being paid a living wage, we know, is very slim. So ask those questions. The story is that we all immigrated here with the exception of the Native Americans, some by choice, some not by choice. So ask the question, wonder, is this a choice? What can I do to change the narrative? And how can my voice matter? You have to ask that question. And don't be afraid. You've got white privilege anyway. I know, y'all, they really are going to kick me off this panel.
I think that what she said is so true. You know, you have to acknowledge it. I really think that sometimes white people just take it for granted, you know, the way things are, as we have done sometimes in the past. You know, this is just the way it's been all these years. And kind of like somebody said, you know, I was taught this, so, you know, grandma, granddad, whatever they say has got to be right. But I think at some point we do have to take responsibility for ourselves and think and become educated, so you'll know how to react. You know, things that have happened to us, when I say us, people of color, to know that there is privilege. You know, there are some of us. Well, I remember this. There were signs that said white and colored for restrooms. It said it for water fountains. You know, so there was I didn't have a choice. Let me say that people that look like me didn't have a choice. I can remember though, my mom made a choice. Her choice was we used to have little collapsible tin cups that she carried. It was one for me and one for my brother. So she wasn't about to let us drink out of those water fountains. So she would go up to the fountain and, you know, and get water for us, you know, and stay there as long as she needed to fill up the cup. So, you know, so this was just acceptable at the time, whereas probably someone else my age at the time I was a kid, you know, went up to the fountain and just thought, well, you know, this is the way it is. This is the way it's going to always be. But that's not necessarily true. You have to think about it and recognize that there are differences, that people are treated differently for no other reason than the color of their skin, for no other reason than the fact they were born Black or brown or whatever, or even as a woman, you know, because women sometimes are, a lot of times are definitely third-class citizens. I won't even say second-class citizens, you know, so recognizing that these things exist and that you know, speak up, you know, what can I do, you know, to make a difference? What, you know, what can I do? And there's always something that you can do. Now you can have a choice and speak up for things. You know, the black and white water fountains don't exist anymore, but there are other things that still do exist. You know, it's not as overt as it was then, but it's still there. You know, sometimes it's subtle, you know, and maybe right now with our present, current president, they're pretty overt, but there have been times when they weren't. So educate yourself, speak up, and figure out how you can help make a difference.
Cindy, before Melissa speaks, may I just add something, please?
Sure, yes.
So you gave such a great definition of white privilege, but I would like to give some examples. Linda gave an example that people may say, and Linda, by the way, I too drunk out of, well, my mother didn't allow me to drink out of segregated water fountains, the same thing. And she was from the South. No, we're not doing that. But yes, I do remember it. But I want to make sure that whoever is listening understands what some examples of white privilege. So if I walk in a store, and an expensive store, and I'm followed around for no other reason, why would you follow me around? I have not stolen a thing in my life. So what makes me look like I need to be followed? And then I look around the store and no one else is being followed. That is what, or I should say, no one else that's white is being followed. That's an example of white privilege. When you have to teach your sons, and I have two, that if you get stopped by the police, this is what you need to do because of the color of your skin, and it does not happen to the white counterparts. That is because of white privilege. If I am working and I worked in an environment with white men, and I'm the manager at an event, and people walk in and see me, and because I am the only dark face there, look around and say, who's in charge? Because it can't be me. That is because of white privilege. So the list could go on and on and on. I just want to make sure that the listeners understand what we mean by white privilege, or what is meant by white privilege.
So I have a few things. So number one, normalize the fact that there will be discomfort when you're speaking up. Number two, allyship is a marathon and not a sprint. So this is something that takes time as you acclimate to correcting friends that you hear say things, correcting colleagues that you hear say things that are inappropriate. You're in it for the long haul should you choose to pursue this. But also, allyship does not happen on social media. Allyship happens at brunch and happy hour and Thanksgiving dinner and other isolated situations in which you are with people that look like you, and they make comments about people that don't look like you, and you have to step in and correct what you've heard and direct them back to the resources that you've read and the things that you've learned. But just be prepared that this is for the long haul, and the expectation is not perfection, but being silent when you hear such, egregious statements made may communicate that you agree with what's being said.
Great advice, and I'm hoping it's something that everyone will take and reflect on as you look at the different conversations and environments that you encounter, and to don't sit back, but to say something, see something, say something. The next question. Michelle Obama revealed to the world that she was dealing with low-grade depression as a result of the pandemic, race relations in our country, and the political strife surrounding it all. And so Danielle, how can we deal with the heaviness of all that is going on around us in order to manage our mental health?
Wow. Well, I can totally agree with my sister Michelle about the, the little bit of depression. I'm so serious, because when they tell you to shelter at home and quarantine and you can't go out and see anybody, and don't get me wrong, you can call them on the phone and you can Zoom them all day, but you're still missing that physical hug, contact. That's me. I'm sorry. I'm talking about myself, not any of y'all. Forgive me. But I totally relate. As somebody who is outgoing, can you tell? As somebody who is outgoing and loves to spread love, when you tell me to stop doing that and you don't give me a substitute, it kind of gets bad. So what I suggest, and yes, things are looking better now, but that doesn't mean that Aunt Sophie doesn't have the virus, because she could be the last one to get it, and you go right over and hug her, and there you are. So it still means we still need to quarantine and we still need to be separate until it goes down and down and down. But you need to take care of yourself right now. Since you're not outside walking around hugging people and loving on people and stuff like that, when you are at home, you need to do things that are good for you, that make you happy, that don't involve anybody else. Whether it's listening to music, that's one of my favorite. Listen to some good music. Watch some movies. Watch them again. I know you got a Netflix account. Watch it. Watch the movies again. You need to do things that make you feel good for right now, and one that doesn't involve a whole lot of other people. So get a journal, start writing things down, start writing your emotions down. And it's okay to write the bad emotions, but you need to turn right around and say, but this makes me feel happy and this makes me feel good, because there's a lot of stuff that you still need to take care of yourself, because once this quarantine is over and the front door opens and you can run around freely in the meadow and the daisies and stuff like that, what are you going to have to share with other people? Because they're going to need some help. So if you've gone through the process and you know what made you feel better and what made you feel good and what made you feel happy, you can still share that with other people so they can start to feel happy now. Not when the quarantine is over. You need to feel happy and you need to feel good right now. Even if that involves going out to Whataburger and getting a vanilla malt with extra malt, large, thank you very much. You need to make sure you take care of yourself and still keep your happy face on. Or if that needs you need to go to the book, you need to read the Bible, you need to do whatever you need to do. But you need to still take care of yourself first, because you can't help anybody else unless you're good yourself.
I feel good just hearing you say that and feeling that Danielle hug through the screen. I know who to call. And you touched on some points as far as the isolation, and we have all seen those images of people touching the window with their loved ones on the other side that they cannot hug, or people being alone in the hospital suffering through with the coronavirus, or being quarantined in their home. And so, Linda, can you also share with us what else you would recommend that people do or that you do for yourself in dealing with these times of isolation?
I think everything that Danielle said was excellent. You've got to find a way to take care of yourself. Women tend to be caregivers. We always want to take care of somebody else, and then okay, I'll get to me a little later on. Linda's good. It's okay. But if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else. You need to feel good, and whatever it takes to make you feel good, or look good, or whatever it takes to make you feel good. And don't let anybody make you feel bad about what makes you feel good. As long as it's legal, we good. Now, as far as other people, there are people who are isolated, who are alone. I know that in the church that I attend, we have a lot of older people like me and older than I am, but some of them are sheltered in place alone. So one of the things that we do, we make regular contact with them. We either do it by phone, we do it by text, we do it by email. We've even had, as you've seen people do these parades, these drive-by parades where people the cars decorated for birthdays or whatever, find some ways to do it, Zoom birthday parties. I had one of those, that makes, it gives you, it's not the contact that you would like to have, but it is some contact, somebody that you haven't talked to in a while, you can put on that mask and do some social distancing, and especially if they're older folks, just to check on them and see how they're doing. It makes them feel better, makes all of us feel better. So, take care of yourself and find some ways that you can go out and help some other people too as well. Because again, if you do something for somebody else, it impacts you as well. It makes you feel better too when you do those kinds of things as well. Yes, Danielle, you may follow me.
Yes, ditto, ditto, ditto to everything she says. And one more thing. If you need to go to the doctor, take your happy self to the doctor and get some help. No matter what that's for, no matter what. The quarantine does not excuse you from not getting your regular medical checkups and everything else like that. You have no excuse. Don't put it on the quarantine. Take your happy self to the doctor and get checked out. Amen.
Amen. Yes. Okay, so I hope people are taking notes and applying. It's all about the application of these things as well. So, Deborah, how can you speak from a place of love to educate those who have uninformed views on racial issues, to help them understand that systemic racism is real?
Cynthia, I would just give them examples and remind them, if you cut me and you cut yourself, guess what? Our blood is the same color. If we talk to each other long enough, we will recognize that we have so much more in common than we have that's different. So that's what I do when I talk to people who are focused on the fact that, well, okay, there is racism and I have some challenges. So now to get people to understand that there is racism, all you have to do is look at George Floyd. But let's go to Kenosha, Wisconsin. How are you shooting someone in the back that's running away from you as a police officer? And these are just small examples, but really just have the conversation. As militant as I seem, I am extremely reasonable, and I do like engaging people. What I know is the more you know about me and the more I know about you, that allows us to build mutual respect and love. But we both have to be willing to do that. So I don't know if that quite answered the question.
Yes, it did.
But I do also want to say something about the isolation piece, but we'll get back to that. I'll let you go on.
Okay. Well, tell you what, I'd like for Melissa to speak on this question, and then after that, we'll come back around to you about the isolation piece.
For me, I try to gauge, like, is this person sincerely trying to learn, or are they trying to argue? And I have to decipher what their angle is. If they're sincerely trying to learn, I encourage them to own their learning and encourage them to reference Google, Amazon, and the Center for Anti-Racist Research, and really, really kind of figure out what it is, learn it, and then come back to the conversation with something that we can really discuss and dig into together. And to be very clear, I do not think it's appropriate for white people to expect for Black people to educate them on all of the things that are wrong with the world. I think everyone needs to own their understanding of what's happening and we have access to more information, and the speed of information is faster than it has ever been in humankind. So do not walk up to someone and say, hey, so the stuff happened in Wisconsin. Like just take a time out and like own your learning, figure it out, but also be open to the possibility that there are things that are happening in the world and in other communities that you just do not know and are not well versed in, and need to potentially just take a seat and listen rather than try to argue and disagree.
Very good. Yes. And I think that, you know, there's a saying that my husband always says, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. And so there just are going to be some people that you just can't reach. But if they have that willingness and openness and want to really understand and to address systemic racism, then those are the ones that we can engage with. But otherwise, it's like, okay, you're going to believe what you believe, and we're going to follow the truth. So going back to isolation, Deborah.
Yes, I just wanted to encourage, at SACAM, we are asking people to do two things. One, and that is to write about this time in a journal, and we have something on our website that gives insight on how to write about it. When you go back and you look at the flu pandemic in the early 1900s, you don't hear the stories really of how it affected African Americans because our story wasn't written. So we are asking people to journal those experiences, write those stories. And again, examples of that is on our website under our storytelling portal. The other thing that we're asking for people to do, this is a great time now to capture your family history, to go after those tradition bearers. You can just pull out your cell phone. We can help you with that and turn it on record and get those stories. Take pictures of those artifacts, you know, those old grade cards, all of that, because all of that is our history, and we want it to be a part of our community-based archive. So if you need any assistance with that, you can go to our website, sacam.org.
That is a fabulous idea. And if I could even add to that, people should take pictures to show where you were in history at this time. And that's like a time capsule. So definitely, whether it's with SACAM or if you are wherever you are, I see we have people from other states even on this call. So find out what your local museums or archives are doing to preserve this moment in history. Okay.
Cynthia, let me just add one more thing. And social media doesn't do it. An archive that is going to be sustained. The SACAM archive is a part of the library at the Texas A&M San Antonio, and it will be there until. So social media is not how you want to capture your story and your family story. It needs to be in an archive. So like Cynthia said, just find it in your local community.
Okay. All right. So, and this question is for Danielle and Deborah. What can people do in the workplace to bring about change as it relates to racial inequities? So Danielle, well, yeah, if you can unmute.
There we go. Sorry. Be a good listener, first of all. And that comes with trying to understand somebody's point of view. Sit down and have a lunch with somebody and talk to them so that you can understand their point of view and they can understand yours. And it's not this long, drawn out thing. You get 30 minutes, maybe an hour for lunch to sit down and talk and share and learn and grow. Be patient. Be patient. Be patient. Because for some people, information that you're giving them is totally opposite of what they have been raised and trained to know. So it's going to be a struggle at first for some people to understand that everything you're saying goes against what grandma and grandpa taught you while you were sitting on the lap. So I think it's very important, if you get that chance at work, to have these conversations with people, or if they come up to you and they start the conversation, that's even better, because that shows that they hopefully have an honest desire to learn and grow. But the other thing, if you don't get to talk to anybody, if nobody comes up to you, or nobody takes your offer to sit down to have lunch, that's okay. You be the very best human being you possibly can be, and set a good example, so that there is that openness and that willingness, if people want to approach you, that y'all can start talking.
So when you look at the workplace, it starts with the leader, and the leaders have to be well informed, and taking a diversity class, creating a diversity value statement, that's not really going to cut it. Melissa, I see you laughing. Okay, it's not going to cut it. So the leadership has to be taken seriously. And one of the things I think about is, as a coach, if you're a good coach, and whether you believe Popovich is a good coach or not, I'm just going to use a basketball team, and I'll use the Spurs as an example. You don't look at your team and say, you know what, I'm not going to play you because you're Black. It just doesn't happen anymore. Did it used to happen? Yes, but we're okay. In this day and age, there's too much money tied to winning for coaches not to put in their winning people. And if the person appears to not be winning, they give them, or I'm sorry, not to have a winning mindset, they give them the tools that they need, because they wouldn't have put them on the team if they didn't think that they could fit. So they're provided the tools that's needed for the team to be successful. A good workplace leader needs to, first of all, look at their team members for what they bring to the table. And then they need to set the culture. If I'm respected for what I bring to the table, regardless of the color of my skin or my sex, my gender, then it doesn't matter, because everyone else they'll have to fall in line because the culture demands it. So it's going to start with leadership. And then we have to hold those leaders accountable for creating and keeping that good workplace culture.
All right, thank you both. We have come to our last question. And this one, I would love for all four of you to respond to it. We lost the Honorable John Lewis and also Reverend C.T. Vivian, two great civil rights icons, on the same day last month. Historically, we as Black people have looked to strong leaders in order to bring about change to our community and to our country. So how do we keep the flame burning to carry on the work of those whose shoulders we stand on? And if we can start with Linda, and then followed by Deborah, Danielle, and then we'll close out with Melissa.
Okay, we have lost some great leaders. There's no doubt about that. But I think that one of the things that we have seen with the protest, we've seen other people want to take up and be a part of it. You know, not just Black people, but we've seen other people, you know, of other races and other cultures, to want to help fight injustice, because I think a lot of people have seen some type of injustice, inequality. So from the protests that we've seen, there have been just many, many people who want to take it up and have their voices heard. You know, a lot of young people, you know, and that's a good thing, you know, because some of us are are much older, you know, and can't do as much as we used to do. But it's so good to see so many young people involved. I think one of the things that has been encouraging about that. But I want to go back to something that I said the last time. I think about being involved, and I think a lot of what we said this evening has talked about some way you can figure out how to be involved. It doesn't have to be something huge. Last time I mentioned about the V to the third power, the VQ. I want to go back to that again. I think you need to be visible, you know, and you can be visible. You don't have to, if protesting is not your thing, that's okay. You know, maybe you can write letters, you know, work on a campaign. I'm going to go back to what I said before. Take the census. That will make you visible. Do that. That's very, very important. The other V is to be vocal, you know, talk to someone, start a conversation. We've talked about, she said, in the workplace, maybe there's somebody who wants to have a conversation, or maybe not, you know, but be the best person that you can be, you know, because that's how this got started. What we're doing tonight, the panel, it just started by a conversation. What can I do? Or the person asked me, what can we do to make a contribution? Well, let's bring some women together and let's talk about it. So being vocal is a good thing. And then vigilant. You want to be vigilant as well. You know, we talked about tonight, as well as knowing our past, you know your history, you know, because if you don't know your history, you know, it's going to help. You need to know your history, in other words, to help be aware of your present and then to shape your future, you know, because if you don't know where you came from, you don't know where you're going. You know, it's imperative that you do that, you know, take some time to do some research, know that. And then the other V that people told me that I needed to add, so we have V to the fourth power, is vote. But you got to register to vote first of all, right? It's not too late to do that, ladies and gentlemen. We have until, I believe, October the 5th. Am I right, ladies? Right? October 5th to vote. So let's go back, and I'm a teacher, so, you know, by trade. So let me go back and reiterate what I said. We're going to be visible. We're going to be vocal. We're going to be vigilant, and we're going to vote. All four, ladies and gentlemen, because as we've heard, we're trying to reclaim the soul of our nation, you know, and voting is important. My parents had to pay a poll tax to vote. Somebody mentioned the other night they had to count the number of beans in a jar to vote. You had to quote the Constitution. You had to be able to talk about and answer all these absurd questions. Now you got to do is register and vote. You don't have to pay. Do it. You know, vote early. As Michelle said, you might want to pack that dinner. You might want to pack that breakfast. You know what I mean? Because the line may be long because they don't want us to vote, people, but you have to vote. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little animated. But it's important. Again, be visible, vocal, vigilant, and vote. Thank you all.
Okay, I'm just dropping the mic. We are called to be John Lewis, and that's who we're called to be. And those four V's just says it all. We have to be the change that we want to see. We have to be the leaders.
Okay, Danielle.
Oh, she really meant that drop the mic, didn't she? Okay. And thank you, Lady Linda, for taking all of our responses to this question. You're welcome. But what she said is so powerful, especially the vote. Let's go back a half step. You can't vote unless you are not registered to vote. Thou must go and get thyself registered to vote, and then vote. Whether you vote early or you vote on the election day or what have you, but you have to use your voice. You have to make sure that you are heard. And the only way to do that is to register and to vote. And those other, what was those other V things she said? What was the first one? What? What? I can't hear you. What? Yes, good. And then number two was what? Good. And number three? And number 4, be vigilant and vote and register to vote. But here's the thing. We have lost some wonderful people who have been fighting the battle for as long as we've been keeping records about people fighting the battle. So who's going to take their places now? Who is going to carry on the banner? It's our responsibility. Nobody else's. It's our responsibility to take their place, to make sure we still continue the fight. We still continue to march on. That's our responsibility. So the least we can do are to follow the 4 V's that she said, but the least we can do is to register and to vote. Let yourself be heard. Oh, and that's right. And the census. She's right about that too. And the census.
The only thing I'll say, and it's really based off what Linda said, is it's find your fire, find your passion. Like we just saw Linda give this like really, really powerful, passionate 4 V's, which are really simple, but she's seen things that I haven't seen, right? So that fire is for a reason. So find your fire and use that fire to fuel your activity in really executing the 4 V's and of course taking your census.
All right. Oh my goodness. You guys are so awesome. And just like last time, I'm full because just what you've poured into this conversation is something that everyone can take a piece from and take into their own lives and now take action. And that's actually what my call of action is to everyone, is to look at yourself, look at what it is that you need to do and ask yourself, what are you going to do about it? Or what am I going to do about it? And then actually take action. So right now you get a chance to take action by participating in our poll questions. And so our tech guy, who is our hero, Ruben, he's popping these questions up there, and even our panelists can answer these. So please take a moment and answer these 3 questions, and we will share the results with you. We'll give you some more time, and then as soon as we get the results, I will share those with you. And as we wait for those results, oh, here we go. All right, so for question number 1, do you believe Black Lives Matter? 100% of our participants said yes. That's awesome. Number 2, have you benefited from white privilege? 48% of you responded with yes. 42% responded with no. And 9% are not sure. Number 3, now this right here is exciting. Are you registered to vote? 100% say yes, registered to vote. All right. That is awesome. So now my challenge to all of you then, since 100% of us on here that took that poll said that we're registered to vote, is to go and make sure that members of your family are registered to vote, friends. And then also when people say, well, yes, I'm registered to vote, or they're not sure, also make sure that they check to make sure their name has not been purged off of the voting rolls, because in some states, some counties, they have purged names off. So it's important to go and check and make sure that you are truly registered to vote. And now the next step is going to be getting people to the polls and actually casting that vote. So again, thank you to our wonderful panelists, to Linda, to Deborah, Danielle, and Melissa. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for tuning in. And everyone have a good night. Stay safe, wear your mask, and I turn things back over to Kelly.
Thank you, Cynthia. I want to thank you so much for facilitating the conversation, and the women for showing up and sharing their honest, full selves. That's brave. It's really brave. And thank you. I am grateful for hearing and learning. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in and being willing to educate yourselves and be open to a conversation that we don't always get to be a part of much with each other. I do want to let you know I'm very excited for our third part of this series. It will be almost a month out. It's about 3 weeks now, on Wednesday, September 16th for 7 to 8:30. And the women and Cynthia will include our facilitator as well. We'll be answering your questions. So we're going to ask you to send in any questions you have, any reflections you have on anything tonight you heard and that moved you, or you want to share a surprise that you had, something you learned, anything from the poll. Also want you to think about what you've done. Come back and share with us an action you've taken. Have you checked about, am I registered to vote? Have you called a friend to check on their isolation? Have you gone to the doctor to take care of your own health? One of the things I know Ms. Linda mentioned to me earlier is there's also yard signs. A simple thing you might be able to do if you could only walk out to your front and your back, to put a sign in your yard or on your window that says love or thanks to our first responders or whatever it is. There's so many ways, and I think personally, and I have amazing men and women in my life, I think women often know how to do small things that are very impactful that other people don't always realize are, don't always think about to do. There's a quiet strength in the steel magnolias on this panel this evening. And one of the things, ladies, I'm already going to share with you to think about. I won't ask you to answer tonight, but we've already had a question tonight. That is, what is the relationship of arts to activism now? And so that's going to be one of our top questions in a month, because we have a writer, we have 2 actors, we have a filmmaker, we have patrons and donors of the arts on this panel. And it all goes back to storytelling. For me, that's where that core is of when you share your story like you women have done, you can't be dismissed because we all bleed the same color. We all have parents, we all have struggles. And it's easier to dismiss if the person's in the car next to you, you could yell at, versus knowing who that person is and seeing the face of a loved one, a neighbor, in that other person. So you are giving face for us to so much. So again, thank you. 2, think about that question, because one of our people tonight, and for any of you who have questions, you have until Wednesday, September 9th to think about what those are, as well as reflections and shared actions, and email our operations manager who did our poll, Ruben at classictheater.org, R-U-B-E-N, at classictheater, theater with an R-E.org. It's also the reply on your Zoom. You can just reply to that email for the link you got tonight and send that. So a reminder, something to think about, and be part of the conversation. And thank you again to all of you for amplifying your voices and listening.